I was curious. I saw Pokémon and how did I travel to the sale? To become Dean through the journey, to build the strongest empire, the universe is the final say, abduct, abduct, abduct. Chapter 1. Dean. You are listening at novelfull.audio. First of all, I would like to explain a few points to everyone. Firstly, I prefer the character of the anime series, Dean. Now that the series is finished, to be honest, I have only watched the first 8 parts. I won't say that the first few parts are just flipping through the plot, so there may be some errors in size. Secondly, I hope everyone can ignore these issues with the timeline. New edition. The first volume, Asking Oneself Questions, was not written to the best of my expectations. After all, it was written for the first time, and I hope everyone understands. It will be better in the future. An unknown planet, with a silver, white and gray robot lying on the ground. And next to him stood a pirate's miscellaneous soldier. If any elves discover it, they will definitely be surprised and bow their heads in submission. Because this robot is Dean, the leader of the 4 evil generals of the Obi organization. Dean is the second character of the space pirate Obi organization, known as the Silver Scorpion General. And it has a close relationship with the space station director Justin. At this moment, there was no expression on Dean's screen, just like losing all energy and lying upside down there. So I've been thinking, what's the matter with you, Saier? Let me cross over, at least let me cross over to the Pokémon, I'll fuck you. Dean sighed helplessly and turned over. He was originally a high school student on Earth, watching Pokémon at home was outrageous. He fell asleep while watching anime, and now he wakes up and travels directly to the sale. I won't say much about crossing over to the sale. How did he meow over to Dean? Just as I was thinking about not yet accepting the fact that I had traveled to Dean, a memory surged in. Countless combat experiences flood into my mind. Dean himself is a skilled swordsman and the space station master Justin, with a close relationship as enemies. The 2 elves are Sagros and Inkaris, who often engage in battles. In terms of combat effectiveness, Justin can also rank among the top in the ranks of robots. In terms of training elves, even slightly stronger than Dean and Justin often fought but were also often suppressed by Justin. However, it is undeniable that Dean's strength was first and foremost a major general of the Obi organization, and his ability to become the second in command of the Obi organization is also commendable. Dean's abilities include training in combat spirit and research on inventions. Wong Sagros will not talk about it for now. In the later stage, Dean can use the 2 essential swords on his arm in various ways. Firstly, he can turn the direction to become a blade sword, then turn it into a shield magnetic cannon, and can also focus the aurora as a blade. Finally, there is the silver needle on the back of his head. It can be said that obtaining Dean's script can be considered a fortunate blessing in misfortune, as he is constantly accepting Dean's original memories. With the identity of Obi as the second leader of the organization, he can basically spend the latter half of his life peacefully. But since Dean has been soul-pierced, he will continue to live in a brand new image of Dean. Shadro, Geo. Just ants. With the crazy transmission of memories, Dean slowly opened his eyes, and his light blue pupils lit up on the black screen. Someone here. The miscellaneous soldiers immediately mounted and respectfully said, General Dean. Immediately gather Allison and Zog. As Dean's cold voice fell, the pirate crew on the side also immediately took action. Dean slowly adapted to his body and then walked towards the spaceship. The current timeline is the sale, which is currently under development, meaning that the main storyline has not yet begun. However, the current space station has been established, and a Searle robot named Justin has been put into use on the space station. And during the enemy's actions, he repeatedly obstructed Dean's plan, which means that the only hidden factor that has appeared now is Justin. When it comes to space pirates, many people have the impression of oppressing elves, bullying the weak, and aiding the tyrants in their tyranny. From the early storyline, whether it's the tackling 3 dragons of Hamo or the whisk of the evil spirit organization, the space pirates have indeed committed all sorts of evil. Now that Dean has changed the person, it is natural to change the situation. At least it is unlikely that he will be infamous. Originally, Dean was commissioned by the OB organization to play the role of a villain. But in fact, bad people may not necessarily have to do it. Along the way to the airship, Dean sat directly at the top, then supported half of his head with one arm, waiting for Allison and Zog. Robots do not require rest, but they require energy consumption for charging, and with Dean's advanced equipment, these issues are not a big concern. Firstly, there is the ultra-long standby mode, and then there is Dean's combat style. Just these 2 points alone, Dean has arranged the energy aspect very well. After waiting for 2 fools, Dean did more to digest his original memories. Although you have already gained combat experience, digestion still needs to be done. After all, you cannot become fat in one bite, and the cost of having high goals but low hands still needs to be weighed. There is no concept of time, and compared to the rapid shuttle in the universe of individual elves, the speed of spaceships is not fast. Normal actions start in a few days, and when Dean is awakened, Allison and Zog have already arrived. Allison is a robot with a deep purple and light purple tone, with 2 horns on its head and 2 spikes on its arms. The front bumper blocks some space, revealing a shrewd eye. Compared to Allison, Zog has a reddish-gray physique and looks very strong with all his equipment, but his intelligence is not very good. Allison, on the other hand, is often ravaged by the Saier team. "General Dean, I heard you're looking for us." Allison was puzzled as he was enjoying his life drinking engine oil in the resort when he was called over. As for Zog, he didn't speak, but the expression on the screen was exactly the same as Allison's. How are the resources collected within the planets in various galaxies? Allison immediately patted his chest and said, "General Dean, the harvest has increased. However, some planets have experienced riots, but the harvest has been replenished by other planets. However, those low-level elves are causing a lot of trouble, and I'm afraid you, Dean, will have to intervene to solve it." Dean nodded and said, "Starting from today, all weeks of forced elf labor will be abolished. If necessary, they will be paid according to their work. Our OB organization will hire them. In addition, I need you to build medical stations open to elves on various planets, treat them, and sell elf cookies. However, in this case, we will lose a lot of resources and there will also be a shortage of labor." As soon as Dean finished speaking, Allison began to recount his thoughts. After all, Allison was flattering, but in the end, if resources were not handed over, he would be dead. "Fool!" Dean cursed angrily and spoke coldly, "How much damage will the elf riot cause us? The more you oppress, the greater the riot will be. And how many resources can we use to make elf cookies, including medicine, from their planet's resources? If they have a tribe, there will definitely be young and old elves. As long as they are willing to accept our employment, they can eat their fill, not worry about illness, and can accept our protection. In this way, their lives are guaranteed, and the labor they put in can improve their quality of life. Riots will naturally be reduced, or even disappear. In this way, we will have resources and their lives will be improved. This is a win-win situation." Allison's eyes turned and he stopped speaking, while Zog spoke out, "I think since he's a low-level elf, there's no need for us to spend so much effort. We just need to find some powerful guys to suppress him. A few days ago, there was another elf named Difute who submitted to us, so we just need him to suppress him." "So, are you questioning me?" Dean stood up, and the aura of the superior made Zog gasp for breath. The latter quickly spoke, "I dare not." Dean's cold gaze moved away from Zog and turned to Allison, saying, "Allison, can we do it?" Allison quickly lowered his head and said, "General Dean, even if it's on me. I will do my best to do things well." Dean waved his hand and said, "Let's go down first. Later, I will investigate the practicality of this matter in person. Let's talk about it later. Allison and Zog also quickly stepped down. Chapter 2. Difute. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After level 36, Elite, Rios, Akia SPT Strong, level 40, Quasi Strong, Dragon Tribe 3 Wastes, Tackling, Seville, Tasia, etc. 50, The Strong, Hamlet, 60, To the Strong, God of War Alliance, 70, The Saints, Pony, there are still some. However, Pony's performance is not good, points are reduced, and he even cut in the later stage, level 80, Legend of 90, Evil Spirit Beast, Kirin and the like, 100 Eternal, with special properties. Firstly, this is my evaluation of the sale. Overall, it's not very conventional, but it's for everyone to see its strength and try to divide it as much as possible. After all, the sale account has its strengths and weaknesses, and it means that in my novel, it is generally different from in the anime. It's not like the hype in the anime, such as being beaten when entering, right? Puni himself is quite impressive in the second installment. After all, 7 lives is quite difficult to deal with, but he's at the same level, right? Miles and the like were casually messed up. I feel a bit unreasonable about this. Everyone can just joke around and watch it here. If you don't like it, I suggest abandoning it directly. After all, we have been cutting corners all day and waiting for a long time to see what's not good about it. If it's not good, it's not necessary. It's good for both of us. After seeing Allison and Zog leave, Dean touched his chin, his tentacles cold, and then suddenly remembered that he was a robot. Although Allison is very cunning, he should not dare to oppose his commands. As for the Dift mentioned by Zog, it can be seen that in the original plot, Dean only had Sagros as an elf, but Sagros did not disappoint her, and later evolved into the King Sagros defeating the Tiger King. As for Sagros now, that is still Dean's pride, but should we say it or not? If he were to simply cultivate himself as an elf, it would be difficult to develop in the future, so Dean decided to dispel this idea of single development. In the War God Alliance, Cassius's record is not very impressive, but it is quite terrifying. He is not like Regea, he is simply a legendary elf with powerful abilities. His primary form is Cats, and the only special feature is that he can speak from his primary form. In the plot setting of the sale, not being able to speak is not necessarily weak, but there is no weakness in being able to speak. Leaving aside the origin of his cursed son, he has had the ability to level the space pirate base since evolution. In the later storyline of Shenkai Mountain, even though he was ultimately defeated by Black's surprise attack, it is enough to prove his strength. It is undeniable that Cassius has just evolved and is not yet very familiar with his ability to use it, but this does not hinder Defert's strength. As an ordinary elf, there is no excellent counter panel, but there is also no strong weakening, and the panel can be said to be very balanced. And here we have to mention Dresa again. Dresa is an elf that prompted Cassius to evolve in the mine. As soon as he appeared, he instantly defeated the sprites of the Sai Xiaoxi team. Of course, due to the clever command of Zog and Allison, he was overturned by Cassius against the wind, and then his flash kill attribute was used as an ice dragon attribute to counter each other, namely Holy Spirit, Ice Ground, Flying, and Grass. At the beginning of the game, according to the usual style, it was quite impressive, but after all, it was 2 very intelligent commanders with strength, but not much. When Dean planned to develop comprehensively, Zog gave him a wake-up call, which was to get both Cassius and Blake in his hands. You should know that during the time period he is currently traveling, Defert has just joined the Space Pirates, and the plot between Cassius and Blake has not yet begun, which means that Blake has not yet formed a significant animosity with Weskier on Grey Star. Weskier belongs to the evil emperor in terms of setting, but only suffered injuries, including loss of power, before finally forming on Grey Star. But what does it matter? I admit you used to be very impressive, but at this stage, Dean is not afraid of anyone. Because according to his current layout, not to mention his Weskier and 2 subordinates, it's probably not enough for him to play even with Pony. It can be seen that Weskier's ability depletion is indeed quite severe, and in the plot, he can only be forced to join forces with himself. However, it should be noted that he was the ruthless character who alone destroyed the entire Light Redemption. That's tearing Blake's household registration book down to 2 pages, to be honest, that's really amazing. In the storyline of the sale, the first appearance of the War God Alliance was a mutual defeat with Weskier, ultimately relying on the restoration of the ancestral spirit beast, which led to the blackening of endless energy. But if you look at it from Dean's perspective, there's a Sagros, a Cassius, a Black, plus a Difute, a stupid dragon, and a Shaker fight. You should know that the OB organization itself is not weak, and it has a mutually exploitative relationship with various dark forces. If this really gets heated up, to be honest, it's really not afraid. However, the top priority is that his layout cannot reach Black's side yet, but opportunities are slowly emerging. He traveled through it with memories from his past life. Although he didn't really like the sale, his pursuit time was not short. Although he couldn't command the overall situation, he was still quite skilled in early planning. Speaking of which, forging iron still requires one's own hard work, and now Dean has the confidence to establish a pirate empire. Thinking of this, Dean's mood improved a bit, and then he went straight to Allison's room. There was no need to knock on the door. He shouted Allison outside the door and immediately opened it. "Dean, boss." Allison's flattering speech. "You said there was a planetary riot before, right?" Dean spoke arrogantly, while Allison quickly nodded. "The rebellious elf is Rios of the Volcano Star." Allison's face showed a humanized expression of grievance and discomfort. He lay on the ground and hugged Dean's thigh before continuing to speak. "Dean, boss, you must make decisions for me." Dean looked at the tears overflowing on Allison's screen and his mind was filled with black lines. Alright, he couldn't beat Yao Ren and still hugged his thighs. This is indeed something that Allison can do. "Let's go, take me on a trip." It seems that Dean has also adapted to Allison's style of behavior, and now Dean doesn't feel anything wrong. Instead, he breaks free and goes out, and Allison immediately follows suit, constantly flattering and chattering along the way. Chapter 3. Seems to be growing my brain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 4. Rios. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as he entered the cave, he saw Sagros stepping on Rios, desperately suppressing him from getting up. After seeing Dean enter, he increased his strength even more, fearing that Rios would suddenly explode. TSK 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 TSK. Dean looked at the scene before him and couldn't help but laugh and cry. "Can we talk now?" Although Rios had a weak breath, he still had some basic consciousness. When he heard Dean speak, he spoke fiercely and said, "I won't let you hurt my children." Dean was stunned for a moment, then thoughtfully walked into the cave. The cave was filled with high temperatures, and even boiling magma was present in the central area. In the nearby pile of stones, there were several essence elements neatly placed. Upon seeing this, Dean nodded thoughtfully. No matter what attitude Rios has towards others, he still values his own children very much. If it's because of his essence, then it's understandable to be enemies with Dean. Under normal circumstances, Rios's IQ should not have any impact, but after all, being a mother can make her nervous and irritable in many things, which is not incomprehensible. Dean thought for a while, then went over and brought a few essence elements, and then came to the cave entrance. Seeing Dean holding the essence in his hand, Rios's entire elf aura came up. Sagros also sensed something was wrong with Rios, his powerful feet tightly suppressing him. "I said Rios, you don't want your essence to go wrong either." Upon hearing Dean's words, Rios's heart trembled and his anger slowly subsided. Then he spoke, "Don't hurt my child." Dean nodded, "A child to teach," and then suddenly the corner of his mouth twitched. His words felt somewhat like a lady. What a special thing, I am a gentleman. Dean wished he could slap himself, but after all, both Zagros and Rios were by his side, which dispelled the idea. I'm not making it difficult for you either. The rules I've set for the various galaxies in the universe are about to be modified, and I want to establish a huge universe empire. Rios, how long do you think it will take for your children to reach your level of strength after they are born? Rios remained silent for a moment, his gaze flickered, and he spoke, it's probably a few hundred years. Dean smiled, hundreds of years or even higher. Ordinary elves, if they want to become stronger, basically rely on the sedimentation of time, and most of them still belong to the category of lower elves. The ability to become guardians of various planets cannot be achieved without the supply of resources. Taking Rios as an example, he can become the guardian of Volcano Star and the strongest of Volcano Star, which requires time to accumulate. It is a series of battles and the accumulation of time. However, even so, with a level as high as 38, he is still not an opponent of Zagros. I want to build a huge empire, and you don't need to be clear about it at the moment, but the only thing you know is that your children are in my hands now. If you don't want them to make any mistakes, just listen to me honestly and follow my instructions. Only then can they be safe. Rios felt extremely helpless in his heart, but looking at the essence in Dean's hand, he still lowered his high head. Yes, Lord Dean. Dean nodded, took out a capsule, and directly put Rios's essence into it. Elf capsules are not only a residence for elves, but also a storage space for easy carrying. Watching Dean put the essence into the capsule, Rios was completely silent. Dean took out another capsule and threw it directly onto Rios. The capsule emitted a burst of light and he put Rios inside. For elves, capsules can also be considered a storage space. If the elves are willing, they can be successfully stored. If the elves are unwilling, then storage will fail. As for the claim that the goods are unconscious, it can be easily stored. The essence is in his hands, and Dean knows from Rios' emphasis on the essence that Rios cannot betray now. Rios and others are not very strong, but in the current situation, there are more victories than none. Moreover, the reputation of space pirates among different galaxies is quite terrifying, but as for life, everything will change slowly. Just like a sentence from before his time traveling, if Madame compromises, she won't easily break free. No, what am I thinking? Dean shook his head and tried hard to shake off all the memories of his past life. Despite the constant criticism of space pirates nowadays, if Dean's approach is truly implemented, this concept will soon change. The current situation is also shooting birds in the head, and the pirate mode is originally to notify you, not to discuss with you. Dealing with lower-level elves can be done through negotiation, but it is better to directly kill elite elves like Oz in hand. When the time comes, let them see the changes on more planets, and then it will be much easier for them to accept. After all, a planet without a leader is like a scattered sand, and the way for space pirates is to make their scattered sand useful. And the leaders of various planets who were originally rebellious like Rios would be severely punished and eventually restricted by Dean. In my past life, there was a strategy called driving away wolves and swallowing tigers. As long as they accept the benefits of Dean's approach, the elves will naturally obediently listen, and even if these so-called guardian elf elites are unwilling, they will have to see the wishes of those lower-level elves. Water can carry boats, but it can also capsize them. Although it has now become a robot, Dean can still achieve just the right level of control over people's hearts in his past life. After putting Rios away, Dean patted Zagros on the shoulder and said, "Well done. Saw." Zagros was also happy with Dean's compliment, and Dean also sensed Zagros's emotions. He stopped speaking and headed straight out of the cave. Zagros also quickly followed suit, while Dean took 2 steps and suddenly turned around, which confused Zagros. I only heard Dean speak earnestly and say, "Zagros, you are already very strong now. There are some things that I don't need to talk about anymore. You just need to remember to follow my command in battles in the future. Whenever you have leisure time, you can add your reinforcement to me and die. Dean has also played the Sail game before, so he is very familiar with the turn system. However, Dean suddenly remembered that this is reality. A serious person who meows to you about the turn system, just sees the opportunity and kill you, won't you? If I have free time, I will strengthen it. If I don't have time, it's just a fight. When the time comes, the frame will also dry up and the reinforcement will also be strengthened. Good steel should still be used on the blade. With more reinforcement, it will be easier to dry the frame. With more dry frame, it will be easier to strengthen. This is a virtuous cycle, why not do it? Dean suddenly wanted to give himself a big mouth again. After all, it has been almost a week since he traveled here, and he only remembered this now. After speaking, Dean continued to walk out of the cave with satisfaction, while Zagros followed behind. Could he still hear the sound of jia 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 coming from ahead? Saw. Chapter 5. Justin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No problem, General Dean, Justin is here. As soon as he left the cave, he saw Allison running towards him, with words in his mouth. And not far away in the sky, a golden figure was rushing towards them. What's Justin smoking with his hair? Why did he come to trouble me? Dean's heart moved, and he also protected Allison behind him, watching Justin come to him like this. Dean, what tricks are you space pirates playing? What have you done to the Guardians of Volcano Star? Dean looked at Justin with some playfulness and said in a flat tone, are you teaching me how to do things? Stop talking nonsense, look at the sword. Justin is not someone who excels in verbal combat. He possesses a wealth of swordsmanship, so why bother using his tongue to stab him with a single sword? Dean's arm guard turned around and directly blocked Justin's fierce sword. Justin, actually I think we can talk about it. Dean threw Justin out and spoke calmly. I have nothing to talk about with you, there is no compromise between justice and evil. After Justin spoke his words in the air, a spirit capsule appeared in his hand and flew out directly. Carlos, come out, my righteous partner. Dean shook his head and turned to look at Zagros. Zagros immediately understood and rushed forward. Dean spoke up from behind and said, don't forget what I said to you. Use your teeth to strike. Saw. Zagros let out a loud shout, and countless shockwaves appeared at the sickle-like blade, flying directly towards Incarus, who had not yet fully displayed his figure. Despicable. Justin snorted coldly and immediately ordered, split them apart. I saw Yincarlos's double-edged sword seem to be about to exhale a phantom, slashing at the incoming energy bomb with a single blade. At this moment, a burst of red light emanated from Zagros's body, followed by a command. Flying Moon Twinkle. Zagros was shaped like a ghost, shining like a sickle and splitting towards Incarus. The two mantises were fighting against each other in the air, followed by Zagros returning to the ground, while Incarus took a half step back. The 49-level English Carlos is really troublesome. Dean looked at the data in his eyes, then at the bright praying mantis dancing in the air. He felt a deep anger in his heart. It was not by chance that Zagros could not defeat Incarus, but he had just taught Zagros the sixth move. We cannot make a hasty conclusion about which is stronger or weaker. Zagros continues to fight. Use the Demon King Flame Strike Wave. I saw another burst of red light on Zagros's body, followed by a black-purple impact, with a sharp blade slashing fiercely towards the air of Incarus. English Carlos. Vacuum Thousand Cracks. Two massive skills collided, and then Carlos took two more steps back, causing a massive wave of energy to crazily sweep outwards, leaving Justin's face gloomy. Dean's difficulty was known to him for a long time. When he played against Dean before, it was less than 30 rounds, and Dean withdrew the record of the two players. They had always been in a draw, but in fact, if we played to the end, it was Carlos who had the upper hand. As the owner of Carlos, he was well aware that his form and level were slightly higher than that of Sagros. The two were evenly matched, but their performance was relatively low compared to their form consumption. Today, Sagros's performance was beyond his expectations. He has been on missions to various planets, and the Battle of Incaris has not been missed, so the only result is that Sagros has become stronger. Although he was temporarily at a disadvantage, all of these were temporary for him. Just as he was preparing to calmly give the next command, he keenly realized that Dean had not yet given the command, and a burst of red light shone again on Sagros. A path in the mind becomes instantly clear. I see. Dean, you are really a tough opponent. Justin thought to himself, and in his mouth, he instructed Incaris to use purification. Purification is the removal of the opponent's buff effect. When he saw the red light shining on Sagros, he understood everything and secretly expressed surprise towards Dean in his heart. There was not much communication between Sagros and Deanming, but Sagros used multiple enhancements behind the scenes. This can only be said that Dean and Sagros have a very high level of understanding. Of course, if this matter were to be known to others, the enemy might only smile. The tacit understanding between him and Sagros is naturally very high, but it's not enough to say nothing. Sagros knows how to use his skills. If it's a low-end game, Sagros can play freely. This is a battle against Incaris, and without command, it's impossible. Since there is no way to avoid it, let's fight to the death. Sarkos will once again use the Teeth Strike attack. Purification is a continuous ripple-like, scattered skill, and any sprites it encounters will have their buff effects removed. As theory suggests, purification belongs to a continuous ripple-like, scattered skill, and any sprites it encounters will have their buff effects removed. Propagation requires air as one of the media, and the speed of propagation is not slow, but there is still a certain delay. And just as purification was about to fall on Sagros, energy balls once again bombarded Incaris. This is not about playing turn-based games with you. In reality, if I get a chance to beat you to death, what do you have to say? This is not Dean playing tricks, it's just a reasonable use of a bug. The current purification is in a very awkward state, and if it continues to be played, it can clear Sagros's enhancement. However, Sagros's previous attacks have a strengthening effect, and the probability of Incaris's evolution being in the air during the release process is very small, which means he only has two possibilities now. The first option is to immediately give up purification and instead dodge Sagros's enhanced attacks, or split him apart again, and then look for the next opportunity to launch a clearing buff. The second method is to continue purifying, not avoiding attacks on Sagros, and choosing to carry them hard. After clearing Sagros's buff, immediately launch an attack to achieve the effect of exchanging damage for damage. This also involves an initiative on the battlefield, which has been firmly held by Dean. Therefore, Sagros's priority will be increased, and Justin and Incaris are in a very difficult situation. It can only be said that they are engaging in a showdown. And as the trump cards of both Sagros and Incaris, they have gone through so many battles, and their grasp of the moment is also very strong. The sound of explosions could be heard in the air, followed by the landing of Incaris. Although the landing posture was not perfect, Incaris's small physique could still be seen. Although English Carlos was hit by a move by Sagros, the corresponding enhancement of Sagros was also eliminated. Justin quickly ordered. Use it, Tianxiang Tsang Pajan. This move, as a physical attack in the combat genre, is extremely terrifying. Incaris was seen flying towards Sagros at an incredible speed. And Justin was also visible to the naked eye, seeing a burst of red light rising from Sagros's body again, followed by Dean's voice, the sky-slaying sword. Two terrifying skills collided, and the slightly superior Incaris was evenly matched by the enhanced attack. One is Incaris's ultimate move, which has enough power to reach 155 points, and the other is Sagros's physics-based ultimate move, which has a power of 135 points. After a week of confrontation between the two elves, they quickly distanced themselves and did not get any advantage from each other, except that Zagros had a slight advantage. Since the victory or defeat in the battle, it has basically not been important because they cannot continue to fight for a long time, and Justin can only say that he suffered a heavy loss in the first place, not knowing Dean's arrangement for Zagros, and suffered a strengthening loss. Although purification was used to eliminate one of Zagros's buff effects, Zagros also dealt a backhand blow to Inkaris and used the buff enhancement to exchange damage with Inkaris. Therefore, in terms of stamina, Zagros has a certain advantage. Come on, Dean, I must defeat you this time. Without a single blow, it actually stirred up the fighting spirit between Justin and Inkaris, while Dean smiled and then spoke softly, "My dear Justin, you don't want anything to happen to the Guardian of Vulcan, Rios, right?" Chapter 6 Justin 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Justin was bewildered. He had already ignited his fighting spirit, but was silenced by Dean's words. Dean was afraid he wouldn't hear him and said, "Justin, you don't want Rios to get hurt, do you?" 6-inch Justin was stunned, and Ingalls, who was about to take action, was also stunned. He did want to have a good fight with Dean, but he didn't dare to really take action. After all, he was in a passive state now. Rios knew he was the guardian of Volcano Star, but he didn't even see him here. Now he can only bet that Dean didn't take Rios. Quickly defeat Dean and go find Rios. It seemed like he had made up his mind, and Justin no longer hesitated. He quickly took action, and Dean seemed to see Justin's thoughts clearly. With a casual toss, the dying Rios suddenly appeared in front of Justin. 6-inch now Justin has completely lost his brain. He doesn't understand why Dean, who was originally ruthless and straightforward, started playing dirty tricks. My heart is dirty playing tactics. Justin, you too. Dean said, and Zagros immediately understood. The sharp sickle stopped at Rios' neck. Justin stood helplessly in place, but at the same time reached out to stop Inkaris. Dean's lips showed a hint of teasing. Justin is feeling very uncomfortable now. Help him, he has a 30% chance. But he knew that Dean really knew how to take action, and this grandson really didn't take Rios's life seriously. When he had taken action with Dean before, that fierce style of behavior was deeply imprinted in his heart. Justin, actually, I think we can talk about it. There's nothing to talk about between us. Justin seemed to grit his teeth and say this sentence. Then there's nothing we can do. Dean struggled to speak, and Zagros understood, saw. The sickle pushed forward again, and Justin's heart seemed to be tightly gripped by a pair of big hands. His style of action is that he doesn't want his teammates to be ahead of him, and as an interstellar explorer, he can't just watch a life die in front of him. Justin's voice seemed to tremble. Let's talk about it. Dean clicked, while Zagros seemed a bit expressionless, with a slow stream of blood flowing out. Dean gave Zagros a bad breath, and Zagros looked up and awkwardly withdrew his sickle. Dean gave it a white glance, then turned to Justin and said, "Justin, I still like your rebellious appearance." Justin's brain is completely paralyzed, and he can't see why the enemy who used to act decisively and ruthlessly has become what he is now. He doesn't understand. He now feels like the whole world is dark, wanting to crash into a stone. Dean naturally noticed Justin's confusion and coughed lightly before speaking, all right, I'm not joking anymore. Justin, how about making a bet?" Seeing Dean speak well, Justin immediately perked up and listened. After hearing the bet, the whole person was in a state of panic. "What did I bet on with you, 6. This is Justin's true inner thoughts. "Make a bet, Rios, in my hands will be more valuable than what he appeared on Volcano Star." "No, Rios Volcano Star will be more prosperous than before." Upon hearing Dean's words, Justin spoke angrily and said, "Dean, what are you up to? Our Searle robots will never compromise with your space pirates. Justin, you don't want to. Justin. 6 Justin seemed to have a bone stuck in his mouth and couldn't spit it out. His expression was like a secret. Alright, Justin, you should go now. Remember our gambling agreement. Justin was taken aback for a moment, then looked fiercely at Dean. Dean just waved his hand and said, haven't you seen it yet? Justin, station master, only you are dangerous in Rios. After you leave, he is actually safe. Or do you want to hear Rios driving you away in person? Later, Dean Fushing whispered in Rios's ear, Rios, you don't want your child to. Allison twitched a few times at the corner of Dean's mouth behind him. I thought I was already shameless enough, but today I saw Dean as if I had discovered a new continent. Miawa Rios was already on the brink of death, but when he heard someone mention his child, he quickly spoke to Justin and said, are you a cell robot? Leave quickly, I don't need your help. Justin was stunned and then looked at Dean again, his gaze full of unkindness. Dean smiled and then spoke again. Justin, webmaster, you don't want to. Justin didn't even finish listening to Dean's words, and his wings still spread open behind him. He withdrew the elf capsule and turned it into a stream of light, flying towards the distance. TSK 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 TSK. Dean clicked a few times, then put Dios into the elf capsule and said to Allison, let's go, the matter has been resolved. General Dean, my admiration for you is truly. The flatterer Allison behind him once again played its role, generously praising Dean's greatness with all the compliments they could think of. Dean slowly stopped and didn't speak, so the two of them boarded the spaceship again. First, take Rios to heal the wound. His essence is on my side, and he dare not act rashly. Next, let's go see what Zog said about Difute. Allison also nodded immediately, and then the destination of the spacecraft was changed to Wyatt. Chapter 7. Wyatt Star. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is this the White Star? Dean stepped on the ground, truly feeling this sense of security. Allison has placed Rios on the treatment device and now he has also arrived in front of Dean. General Dean, do you need me to help you summon Derived? Allison spoke obsequiously. No need, since you're here, why don't you take a good look? Declining Allison's kindness, Dean walked step by step towards the distant mountain. The plot about the White Star only features 2 elves under the pirate's command, one is Dexter and the other is Evil. Siate is known as a 3-tier transformation elf, which can use skills from grass, fire, and water. It looks very operational, but it belongs to the category of plucking hair and being kicked out by Cassius. Although the record is good, it has the strength to defeat the elite team and the small interest team in the competition. But it's just bullying and bullying Sai Xiaoxi and them. With this in mind, Dean turned back to Allison and said, let me see your elf. Allison was a bit surprised, but he was still very obedient and released his elf. Come out, Nisk. Looking at the blue elf in front of him, Dean sighed helplessly. Nice level is prominently written as level 12. This level is also lower than those at levels 5 or 6. It's not easy to evolve at this level once the elves become so strong. That is to say, Allison can bully and bully lower level elves. When facing higher level elves, it's basically a matter of being beaten. Allison looked at his own general shaking his head, and he understood in his heart that his general didn't like his elf, so he could only smile awkwardly and then take it back into the elf capsule. If you have free time, you still need to exercise your elves. When you go out, elves are your most loyal companions. With stronger elves, your safety can be better guaranteed. After Dean saw Allison take the elves back, he also spoke up. Allison nodded knowingly, and then the two continued walking towards the mountaintop. Just arrived at the mountaintop and saw a brown and white elf with long horns coming in front of them. He bent down and said, Difute pays respects to the 2 generals. Dean glanced at him, and then a glimmer of gold flashed in his eyes, with level 42 prominently written inside. His level here is not about the level of the elves, but an introduction to their combat power. As an elite level elf, Rios's level will be after level 30, while his combat level is placed at level 38. Not to mention, the foe in front of him has a much longer survival time than Rios, and his combat level is also level 42. Elves like him who gradually settle down through time are basically within this range. Sagros followed his time, although it was not short, it also took a long time and his guidance to reach level 46. You should know that Rios, who can fight within a few moves at level 46 of Sagros, cannot raise his head. If Sagros were to face Difute, he would probably have won, but in terms of combat level, every 10 levels is a major level. In the 40 level, Difute is qualified to face Sagros. Although he was ultimately defeated, he was evenly matched and ultimately defeated in a comprehensive situation. And like the level 12 or even below level 20 Nisk released by Allison just now, a level 38 Rios alone is enough to solve them in one move. The combat level is quite terrifying, which is also why Dean admires the elf in front of him. Difute, your vision is good. Welcome to join the Obi organization. The Cosmic Pirate is a title given to them by the elves in the universe, organized by Obi. Although the meaning may not be very good, as they used to say that pirates are meant to be despicable, despicable is also a means and ability, they gradually accepted this title in the future. After all, their main way of obtaining resources is through plundering the elves such as G. To be honest, according to those elves with combat levels of 5 or 6, even hundreds or even thousands of them cannot hold on to those resources. And the space pirates not only plunder them, but also oppress them. To some extent, they are already under the rule of the space pirates, and Dean's idea is to change this rule into a form of labor. Just like companies in previous lives, those who have worked have gained more, those who have worked more have gained more, and those who have worked less have gained less. In his mind, if it's a lazy elf who loves to eat and work, then life and death are basically unrelated to him. However, if it's the kind of elf who works hard, Dean guarantees that he can definitely have enough to eat, and even has a certain level of improvement. It is my greatest honor for General Dean to join the Obi organization. Difute's first tone of submission was even more respectful. Nodding his head, he now needs a very loyal and capable elf to the Obi organization. In terms of his current timeline, the Dragon Clan of Jupiter has said to have rebellious thoughts. As for the cracked space galaxy Grace on Black side, the situation is relatively stable, and the hands of space pirates have not yet reached out. The Guardian of the Temple of Light, the Black family's combat power, is also quite strong. With his current Sagros, it is generally not a problem for him to face the 3 dragons of Hamo alone, because Dean himself is a combat power, but the problem is that he has crossed over and has to fight every day, which would damage his face as an Obi organization general. I have the resources I can mobilize, so it's a bit unreasonable for me to go and fight on my own instead of having to. At the beginning, the 3 dragons of Hamo were also subservient to the space pirates. They first forced the then Dragon Elf King, the old Dragon King Modo, away, and then oppressed his son Hamo. At that time, they also belonged to a cooperative relationship, and Dean now needs to make them submit directly, or even kidnap them directly. The strength of the 3 dragons in ruling the Dragon Clan. To be honest, it's not pleasing to the eye. But if they were to fight, they would definitely be a good player. Difute, I value you very much. Give you a chance to follow me, and in the future, I will guarantee that you will definitely have a place in the universe. Dean spoke slowly, while the elf in front of him was stunned. In the universe. How familiar this vocabulary is. You should know that the guardians of some planets are greatly limited by the local environment, such as the mushroom monster on Carlos, the steel-toothed shark on Ocean Planet, and the volcanic star Rios, which he has now subdued. The guardians of these planets each have a unique characteristic, which is that they cannot be tainted by the universe. That's why most of them chose to submit to the space pirates, because no matter how many times they drove away, they couldn't stay away from this planet. Moreover, due to the local environment, their abilities have been improved to a certain extent. If other planets are mentioned, their abilities will significantly decrease. As the first victim in the Saier mobile game, the mushroom monster, even if it is on its own planet, it is still a big challenge. Basically, one person can go there and step on it twice. Then there is the steel-toothed shark, which holds a dominant position on Ocean Star, but to be honest, its strength is just that. If you confront Ocean Star head-on, there may be a certain chance of defeating Rios, but Rios won't run to your territory. The steel-toothed shark is also rampant on Ocean Star. If there is no water in other galaxies, it is basically a concept of cooling through. Only with water can we fight, and without water can we rest. This is the real key, unless he can evolve a pair of feet. Chapter 8. Hamo Star. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Leaving aside the Big Owl TIAs, many elite elves are restricted from freely navigating through the universe. In the Pano galaxy, the true loser is the planet Helka. Two legendary civilized elves have made a significant breakthrough in the universe, namely the founder of the War God Alliance, Regaea. Apart from these two individuals, there are basically very few who have left the planet. Of course, this also brings with it the recently evolved Cassius who has been shuttling through the universe. Without exception, those who can shuttle through the universe are basically strong, except for Mute Mimi, but at least they are also Mimian, a pre-evolutionary form of Miris. Difute naturally belongs to the dominant level of elves on the planet of White, but to dominate, he can only face elves on other planets on the planet of White, and he basically cannot see them. Gradually, he also loses the strong desire to pursue strength. So Difute is still quite interested in Dean's proposal. White Star has grown tired of it. If he could go out and take a look and confront other powerful elves, would it be more interesting? It's my honor for General Dean to follow you. Quickly, Difute made the decision of his life. Dean smiled contentedly and then took out an orange elf capsule. Without any surprise, Difute entered the capsule, and Dean released him again, saying, "From today on, you will be my elf, Dean. Now, you go and arrange things on this planet. The battlefield we will fight on in the future will be the Starry Sea. If you get tired one day, you can come back as usual. Dean will definitely not stop you. I will respect the thoughts of every elf, but you must remember not to betray me, Dean. Otherwise, I will make you feel that coming to this world is your mistake." Difute lowered his head and said, Difute is willing to be the only horse to see for Dean in this lifetime. Later, Dean also watched as Difute left, and then he said to Allison, "You leave first. I will find you soon. You can replenish the energy of the spaceship and set the target on Hamo." "General Dean, are we finally going to take action against Hamo Star?" Ellison's face was filled with excitement that was hard to choose from. Hamo Star had a relatively large resource, but the resources they could obtain were ultimately limited. The vast territory of Hamo is mostly under the control of pirates, and the Dragon Clan Palace is the last pure land of Camo. During this period, Sever Tackling and Tasia still have decent combat power. After all, the Dragon Clan Elf King on the surface is still the old Dragon King Modo. In the case of the strong Dragon Clan, the fact that space pirates could still occupy the vast majority of the territory of Ham proves the strength of space pirates. The current strength of the Dragon Clan's 3 ministers is also not to be underestimated, but they have already had some thoughts of surrendering to space pirates. In the face of internal and external troubles, Hamo Xing cannot last for a long time. In the original work, he would also be the ally of the 3 ministers of the Dragon Clan, ultimately forcing Modo to persecute Hamo. Their 3 ministers became leaders of the planet Hamo, providing assistance to the space pirates and handing over resources. Dean's current idea is to completely take these 3 dragons for his own use and erase some of their unrealistic ideas. Dean's attitude towards planets is very clear. He attracts high-level elves and allocates labor and resources to low-level elves. However, this is actually quite simple. Most planets resist pirates in the form of elite elves, leading grassroots elves to fight against pirates. They also have a deep understanding of this form. They only need to defeat high-level elves, then exert pressure and promote grassroots elves, and they will definitely reach their destination. However, previously it was completely in the form of oppression, and later it will be achieved through a coordinated and cooperative transaction. In less than an hour, Difute arrived late. The lower elves of White Star do not have much intelligence. After all, compared to the dragon race of Ham Star, these races can only be said to be out of class. However, in the state of a guardian deity on the planet of White, Derived did not disturb their lives too much. For them, whether Derived left or did not leave was not of great significance. "General Dean, I'm ready now." Dean nodded, took the elf in front of him back to the elf capsule, and then turned to walk towards the spaceship. Next stop. Hamo Star. The Temple of the Dragon Clan, where the old Dragon King Modo sits on the throne. Below the throne are 3 ministers. Entaclantasia, Seville. Your Majesty, our resources are only 30% left, and the space pirates only rely on supplies from various planets. Their current lives have not changed much compared to before. A messenger knelt on the ground and spoke. Modo sighed. Although he was the Dragon Elf King, he possessed considerable combat power. He can sweep a unit alone, but his subordinates don't have such good luck. They are all elves who use skills, and the space pirates also have laser cannons, laser guns, and so on in their hands. Although his armor is high, it would be unbearable for him to be hit in a concentrated attack, let alone his subordinates. Your Majesty, in my opinion, if we continue for a long time, we will undoubtedly lose. So, why not surrender early? We can still maintain the title of Dragon King. A purple dragon stood up and spoke, saying that this person was the head of the 3 ministers, Seville. After listening to Seville's opening call, Modo immediately became furious and said, "Stupid. The space pirates are ambitious, and even though you haven't gone abroad, you know from the bottom of your heart what the space pirates are doing on other planets. Invasion, plunder, oppression. As the ruler of the Dragon Clan, I dare not say anything else, but I can guarantee that my people will not be bullied by foreign invaders. They are the Dragon Clan who have grown up with you for generations. Yes, you are the minister of the Dragon Clan, and even if you join the pirates, there is still room for bargaining. But have you considered their feelings? Can't even eat a few bites, day and night I dig in that dimly lit mine. Have you really forgotten the scene you saw when you went to rescue them from that dark underground cave? My people have haggard faces and look like withered trees. How can you let me bear it? Why don't you surrender to Seville early? Do you want to be the traitor of the Dragon Clan?" At this time, Mordor was still at its peak, and Seville was suffocated by the massive dragon breath. Seville immediately admitted his mistake and said, "Your Majesty, calm down. I have already realized my guilt. Chen is willing to be the vanguard to help your Majesty eliminate pirates and bring peace to the planet of Hamo." Upon hearing Seville's words, Modo suppressed his anger and his breath on the dragon chair became even more terrifying. "I know the current conditions are very difficult, but we cannot just surrender like this. We can indeed gain some privileges by joining the pirates now, but is our actions worthy of the support of the dragon people behind us? Don't say much about such things in the future. Our dragon people were born between heaven and earth, fearless, and fought until the end." Chapter 9. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. A spaceship slowly landed on Hamo Star, and a silver-white robot jumped off the spaceship. Under the spaceship, the pirate crew spoke up one after another, "Congratulations to General Dean. The plan to build the Empire has only been told to high-level officials such as Allison and Zog, and the plan has not yet been implemented. Therefore, the current group of pirate miscellaneous soldiers have not received such instructions. thinking that Dean is coming to push down Ham in one fell swoop. Silence. Allison directly exerted his consciousness as a lackey and immediately came out to control the field. As the pirate crew on both sides gradually lost their voices, Dean spoke slowly, "We have formulated a new policy regarding the planet, and your General Allison will convey it to you next." Dean assures everyone that as long as I am Dean, I will not disappoint anyone. I can guarantee that you will be the backbone of my pirates no matter when or where you are. I am proud of you. Dean's hasty remarks were immediately accompanied by cheers from the pirate crew. You should know that Dean used to be very aloof, and no matter what, he usually wouldn't have contact with these pirate miscellaneous soldiers. Even if he did, he would only give orders to them to complete when they had spoken close to them. And with Dean's arrival, the space pirate miscellaneous soldiers fell into cheers, while on the other side of the Dragon Temple, Seville sat on his chair, with Tackling and Tasia on either side. Lord Seville, the pirates have all retreated. It is said that they are going to meet their General Dean. Tackling spoke slowly, while Seville's eyes flashed with a hint of brilliance. The space pirates can push us to such a situation with just laser weapons. The General Dean they are talking about must not be a simple commodity. Our opportunity has come. He stood up and said calmly, "Gather the army, prepare to attack the space pirates. You two follow the plan. As long as you board the big ship of the space pirates, the throne of Modo will be mine." On the other hand, in terms of space pirates, with Ellison's explanation, the pirates all felt a bit uncomfortable. The overall policy has not changed. After all, Hamo Star is still in a conquered state, but they also have some mining elves in their hands. According to Dean's instructions, they will be given certain resources and released. Subsequently, after the complete conquest of the planet Hamo, a plan will be made for them, which will be a win-win situation. Although they all had some misunderstandings, they still followed Dean's instructions. After Allison finished speaking, he returned to the spaceship to rest. Explaining these things is Allison's job, and after he finishes speaking, he will gather the army to fight, which is Dean's job. Their robot actions mainly rely on energy, and Dean's equipment, as a high-end equipment, actually does not consume a lot of electricity. However, Dean's body is now full of Earthlings, with a lazy attitude. If I can sit, I will definitely not stand. If I can lie down, I will definitely not sit. Adhering to the attitude of slacking off, Dean feels much more comfortable. At this moment, he felt a series of noisy sounds coming from outside the spaceship. He felt a little annoyed in his heart, so he turned over and looked out from the glass of the spaceship, only to find that the laser weapons in the hands of the pirate soldiers had already been used, while the sky was filled with flying dragons, and the ground was filled with dust, and various dragon-type elves. Elves also pay attention to certain tactics, using heavily equipped dragon-type elves to rely on terrifying dual defense to stack damage on the front line, while flying dragons carry out a flanking attack, and the final ranged dragon type also uses spell skills to attack the formation. But to be honest, these dragon type elves are not enough to watch. These dragon type elves are generally at levels 8 and 9, and there are also some elite level ones in these ordinary ranks before level 20. Although their organizations have certain rules, overall they are still quite poor. Although their dual resistance is relatively high when it comes to reinstalling dragon type elves, they are not good enough to see the laser weapons of the pirates, and their sight is even less when it comes to long-range output positions. The flying dragons cannot even touch the space pirate minions. The miscellaneous soldiers directly surrounded the spaceship for a defensive battle, but to put it simply, a group of dragon-type elves seemed to surround them, but in reality, they were like sheep entering the tiger's mouth. They basically cooled down before taking 2 steps, while some pirate miscellaneous soldiers swam outside in groups of 3 or 5, with a relatively high casualty rate. However, compared to those dragon-type elves, a few dragon-type elves were injured in order to replace the body of a space pirate. You should know that they are robots. Even if they are injured, they can quickly recover by replacing parts, but these dragon-type elves cannot. So the battle situation on the field is showing a one-sided situation, and the enemy was already thinking of going back and continuing to sleep, because on this battlefield in front of them, the dragon-type elves came with a fierce force this time, but the defeat has already occurred. But he glanced back and saw 3 figures. Seville tackling Intasia. Did these 3 dragons come straight to me? Okay, I'm too lazy to come looking for you. Seeing their 3 enemies, they immediately got out of trouble and quickly rode on a flying aircraft, leading the pirate soldiers to fly towards the 3 dragons. Tasia looked at the silvery white robot flying in, and was pleased. The pirate soldiers had a high recognition. A blue and white essence robot was undoubtedly the highlight of the crowd, and it seemed that his momentum was far more powerful than that of the soldiers. The man in front of him was probably Dean, the great general of the space pirates. Seville level 40 is at level 35 and Tacklintasia level 36, respectively. This Tacklintasiat is not as good as Rios. However, it seems that it is also the resources of Jupiter, and even if it is terrifying, it is not enough for a few dragon-type elves to share. The resources cultivated by dragon-type elves will consume a lot more than ordinary elves, and Rios, on the other hand, integrates the resources of Huishan's star to achieve a combat level of 38. The 3 dragons in front of him, Seville's level, can even be at level 40, not to mention that there is also a middle-aged dragon-type elf king, Mordor, on Harmon's star. The resources of Hamo's star still make Dean feel a bit envious. According to the words in the 3 kingdoms, it is a place that soldiers must compete for. Sagros, Divert, come out for an event. Approaching him, Sadian didn't hesitate to throw out the blue-white and a black-brown capsule. Sadian also didn't hesitate to throw out the blue-white and an orange elf capsule. Chapter 10. 3 Dragons and Modo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Difute. After the protection of the mountain god, use the 8 directions to return to life. Sagros, launch the Demon King Flame Strike. Seville saw the 2 elves launch direct attacks, and his heart trembled. Before he could speak, the 2 attacks had already arrived in front of him. He gritted his teeth, propped up a shield, and 2 terrifying forces drove him back several meters away. Tackling and Tasia, 2 dragons, exchanged a glance. Tackling and Tasia simultaneously activated their skills, one unleashing the Dragon King wave and the other unleashing elemental spewing towards the 2 elves. Sagros avoids using the Demon King flame wave. Difute avoided and used the rock shell to strike and trample heavily. A burst of yellow light appeared on Difort's body, and he quickly avoided 2 shock waves. He exerted all his limbs and came to them, directly bombarding them. The terrifying force also flew the 2 dragons away. I am the minister of the dragon clan, you cannot let them catch me. If they catch me, the dragon clan will become very passive. Take me away quickly, you cannot let them catch me. Seville looked at Dean getting closer and closer, couldn't help but shout loudly, and then turned over and ran backwards, albeit at a speed that was somewhat tear-jerking. Is this special an actor? Dean, the corner of his mouth twitched. Is there anything more obvious than this? When I saw myself coming, I didn't launch an attack. I passively defended myself and then shouted out my identity loudly. I also emphasized twice not to catch him, and I analyzed that catching him would have a great impact on the Dragon Clan. And he has wings behind him. If he really wants to run, the enemy may not be able to stop him. He could tell that the 3 ministers of the Dragon Clan had already had the idea of surrendering. Dean groped in his heart for a moment before continuing to order, catch them up, no, knock them out and catch them. Seville heard Dean's words before and felt secretly happy. He was confident that he would be caught. During the interrogation, confide in the space pirates. I believe that with his strength and the status of his dragon race, the space pirates will not make it difficult for him as a captive. But Dean's last words made him dumbfounded and knocked him unconscious. Not even when I brought him back did I show it clearly enough, I was afraid of the pain. Can I knock and not slap you in the face? Quickly, with the capture of the 3 ministers of the Dragon Clan, a group of dragon-type elves also dispersed in unison. When Modo received the news, the 3 ministers had already been arrested by Dean and imprisoned. Modo was immediately furious, but soon calmed down again. He also knows a little about the thoughts in the hearts of the 3 dragons of Seville, Taklina, and Tasia. But currently, the available combat power of the Dragon Clan is limited. His descendant Hamo's talent is evident to all, and over time, he is also qualified to compete for the position of Dragon Elf King. But time waits for no one. The only ones he can use now are the 3 generals, and no one else. Among the 6 combat forces of the Dragon Clan, he is one, followed by the 3 great generals. The other 2 are the Dragon Clan wizard Saturani, and the other is the Paro clan. As a close attendant of the Dragon Clan, the Paro clan is also very powerful and knows many secrets of the Dragon Clan royal family. Therefore, when Modo takes action, he is not soft-hearted. As for the Dragon Clan wizards, their strength is too weak to play a significant role in this battlefield, and they can no longer find anyone. Modo stood up and the pressure of the Dragon Emperor swept through. He can't drag on any longer, even if it's emotional or rational. He knew from the early morning that they would not be opponents of space pirates, and after struggling for a while, it was time to pull the curtain down. If he wins this battle, he will also suffer a disastrous defeat. He cannot hold on to this huge family business. If he loses, the one he most wants to give up is Hamo. Hamo's qualifications are very strong, unfortunately. I can't accompany him anymore. A hint of determination flashed in his eyes, and he then ordered a few confidants to protect Hamo, while his momentum continued to climb, summoning an army and heading to the space pirate base. General Dean, really don't care about them. If we bring them to the battlefield, we can blackmail those elves. No need, the more urgent they are, the better. Only by taking the initiative can we stand undefeated. Dean took a cold sip of the engine oil, which flowed through his body and made his body relax. He naturally has a clear idea of what 3 dragons want to do. It's nothing more than plotting against the Dragon Clan according to one's own identity, and then making the 3 of them leaders of the Dragon Clan, providing resources to Dean on a regular basis, and so on. But what Dean doesn't lack the most now is leaders. It should be noted that under the social conditions of a democratic republic, leaders should not be these nobles. What Dean needs is a trading class leader led by pirates themselves, and these local nobles only think about whether their lives have decreased and improved. If they are dissatisfied, riots will definitely be inevitable. Dean now has 100% confidence in holding on to these 3 dragons and letting them work for him honestly. Naturally, they won't continue to do things in the wind, and these 3 dragons are just fighting. In the true sense of governance, it's really ridiculous for them, Omega. General Dean's army is not doing well, the Dragon King of the Dragon Clan has attacked. Alright, I got it. Dean stood up with a hint of playfulness in his eyes. Allison, prepare to face the enemy. Dean's eyes were full of confidence, and then he strode out of the spaceship. When Modo was young, he could be hailed as the Dragon Elf King, so he must have some real skills, and now Dean is most afraid of being a master. As for the early stage of the sail, the only experts that can be encountered so far are the legendary elves like Regea, which are slightly inferior. They are various types of elven kings, such as the ancestor spirit beast, the dragon king, Modo, and so on. But the ancestor spirit beast, after all, is suitable for healing and has extraordinary abilities in healing. As an existing expert, the old dragon king Modo still looks forward to him, Dean. The peak period of Modo was not presented in the anime series Sail, but being able to become the Dragon King during this period already indicates that Modo has a certain level of skill. In the later stages, after the appearance of the Pony Sorensen red-headed wizard Kasha, the high-end combat forces were basically fully unleashed, and it was then that the true masters of the chaos were constantly emerging. As one of the game players in this world, Dean is definitely going to confront them, and now what Dean wants to cultivate is a strong heart. Dragon King Modo has a certain degree of dominance in the Dragon Clan, and his combat power is also undoubtedly a champion-level figure in the Dragon Clan. Dean, this battle is about using him as a sharpening stone, and on the other hand, it's also about convincing him and laying the groundwork for ruling Hamo Star. Only by winning this battle is it still feasible to be fully grasped by oneself.